It comes at night. What comes at night? The boogeyman? As a kid, that's why I always believed came at night. Hey, what's up, you guys? Film fan 0599 here again. And today we're going to review It Comes at Night. So It Comes at Night stars Joel Edgerton, and what this film is basically about. It's about this family who's trying to survive this sickness, basically, that comes at night. And, you know, they bring in this family, and there's something a little bit off about this family. Something a little bit strange. So, what did I think of It Comes at Night? Now, I really didn't have that many expectations going into It Comes at Night because I'm not the hugest fan of the movie studio A24. I think they're probably the most overrated movie studio, probably of all time. They're just not that great of a studio to me. They really aren't. They try so hard to be so smart and so intelligent when in reality they really aren't. But, you know, but of course, I always go into every movie with an open mind. So hopefully, I was like, you know what? Hopefully I can like this movie. Maybe it could be good. I didn't enjoy It Comes at Night. It's not good. It really isn't. I didn't enjoy It Comes at Night. I think it's a pretty bad film, honestly. It's not that good of a film. And it makes itself out to be a horror film, even though it doesn't even really feel like that at all. Because, for one, the movie's not scary at all. And two, just, the biggest problems going for this movie is that the characters are not interesting. They're pretty awful. And the story is not interesting. Like, there's a lot of things that just are going so wrong for this movie. But before I get into what my negatives are, I do have one positive with this movie. My only positive is that I thought Joel Edgerton was great. He was definitely by far the best actor in the entire film. And he was the only one that gave a great performance and the only character that I cared for and actually made logical sense in this movie. Like, he is the only smart character in this movie. Like, he really is. He's the only logical character in this film. Every other character is dumb as hell in this movie. I'll explain further more of that later on. But, yeah, Joel Edgerton was really the only one that gave a great performance in this film and was really the only character I cared for in this movie. So, yeah, that's my only positive with this film. Now let's jump into the negatives, because I do have a lot of negatives with this film. First being, the rest of the acting is completely awful. I thought everyone was terrible. Except for Joel Edgerton, everyone is terrible. Seriously. They are so overacting and so just, they really are. Like, the worst character in this entire film is the son. Is Joel Edgerton's son. He's the worst character in this entire movie. Like, seriously, he was awful. I thought the actor that played him did such a terrible job in this movie. He really was. He was such a terrible actor. He gave such a terrible performance in this film. And not to mention that his character is dumb. Like, really dumb. Like, he makes some stupid decisions in this movie that you're just like, why would you do that? Like, he really, really does. And he was really bad in this movie. I thought he gave an awful performance in the film. He was by far, to me, the worst character in this entire movie. The woman that plays Joel Edgerton's wife / the mother of the son, she was awful too. She makes some really stupid decisions in the film as well. Like, seriously, she does such an awful job in this movie. And, you know, the guy who plays Will, he's not good either. One of the chicks from, like, Mad Max Fury Road that was one of the wives, she's in this movie too. And she was not good. She really wasn't. Just the acting is so bad in this movie, and their characters are so one-dimensional and so awful. Like, seriously, they're so boring, and I can care less about any of them. And not to mention the fact that they're dumb as hell as well. So, yeah, the characters are not good. Besides Joel Edgerton, who's the only interesting character in this movie, everyone else is uninteresting. I could care less about any of the other characters. So, yeah. Next up, the movie is not scary whatsoever. This movie is not scary. Like, some people are like, oh, it's so real and so under your skin. No. No. You want to know a movie from this year that gets under your skin? A Cure for Wellness. Go watch that movie instead, because at least that movie knows how to use atmosphere as a tool for the movie and for the plot, and it makes it work. So yeah, however in this, nope, not at all. Just, this movie is not scary whatsoever. It really isn't. What does this movie rely on in terms of trying to scare you? Well, it relies on pretentious wide shots, some really awful dream sequences that happen way too much in this movie, and some really awful jump scares. That's what this movie relies on you to be scared by. And it's terrible. And I wasn't scared once during this movie. Well, you see, with The Witch, at least, I wasn't a fan of that movie, but at least with The Witch, there were some intense moments in that movie that I thought were really good. But however, here, there's none of that in this movie. None of it. There's nothing that I thought was at least tenseful at all. Now, I did not feel intensity at all during this movie. So yeah, there's nothing scary about this movie to me. Not to mention that nothing happens in this movie. Literally nothing. Nothing happens in this film. Nothing at all. Like, you were just watching... honestly, watching paint dry is more interesting than watching this movie. Like, seriously, nothing happens. Nothing happens in this movie, and it's not interesting whatsoever. Like, I literally almost wanted to yell at my screen, something happened! Because nothing was happening! Nothing! Oh my god. Nothing was happening in this movie. I'm just like, something happened already! I was just sitting there bored out of my mind because nothing was happening. Oh, not to mention that this movie makes no sense at all. Like, seriously, nothing in this movie makes sense. There's a thing that happens in this movie that I'll just say involves two guys, like two hitchhikers, I guess you can say, and it makes no sense because it's never, for one, it's never brought up again, and two, it just felt like it was just thrown in there for absolutely no reason. Like, seriously, like, nothing makes sense in this film. Nothing at all. Like, really, nothing at all makes sense in this movie. And the story is really boring. Like, the story is so uninteresting. Like, seriously, the story is so uninteresting with this movie. Like, I did not care at all during this movie. Like, the story was so uninteresting. And not to mention, now I usually don't try to mention this with reviews, but God, the marketing with this movie is really terrible. It's so mismarketed. Because, now, I saw the trailer for this when I saw King Arthur in theaters. I saw the trailer for this, actually. And I was like, I already know the movie's not going to be like this. Because, I know how A24 works, so... But, I feel like with people that don't know how A24 works, they're going to go into this thinking it's like a survival horror movie, like kind of like The Walking Dead or something. And it's not going to be that way at all once they see it. And it's like, you're going to mislead your audience so badly with this. And it really does. Like, the marketing for this movie misleads this movie so much. So, if you're not aware of how A24 works, and you go into this movie thinking it's like something like The Walking Dead or even The Last of Us, don't at all. Don't think you're going into this movie thinking that, because it's not like that at all. No, not in the slightest. And yeah, the marketing, whoever did the marketing for this movie needs to be fired, because the marketing was so terrible, and it's so mismarketed. The writing is terrible with this movie. It's so poorly written, this film. The directing, I don't get how people say this is so beautifully directed. It's not. It's shot like any other film to me. It really is. Like, it really is. This movie was shot like any other film. The directing was not that great. Editing was alright. Cinematography wasn't even that impressive to me, honestly. Seriously, the cinematography wasn't even that impressive to me with this movie. It just looks so bleak. You know what I mean? Like, it looks so bleak to me. That's what it looked like to me. Like, so bleak. So yeah, the directing is nothing special to me. And lastly, this movie is so... You ready? You know what? You ready for this? You ready? Boring! Holy... Okay. I'm not kidding you. I fell asleep. I literally fell asleep for a good 5 minutes. Literally, I was only 30 minutes into this movie, and I fell asleep. I literally had to rewind back to where I was when I fell asleep. Because I was just like, because this movie's so boring. Because nothing happens. Nothing happens in this movie. Literally, nothing happens in this film. And it's just so boring to watch. Not to mention, not only does nothing happen, but the characters are uninteresting, except for Joel Edgerton. The story is not engaging whatsoever. So, obviously, I'm going to feel bored during this movie because, oh my goodness, like, listen, I don't mean to bring this movie up again in this review, but look at Here for One. That movie's like 2.5 hours long. And there's only like a couple times where I felt the pacing. That movie moved at actually a really good pace for a movie that was 2.5 hours long. This is an hour shorter than that. And this movie felt like 3 hours. How? Seriously, how? This movie moves at a snail's pace. And it's only an hour and a half. Seriously, and it moves at a snail's pace. Oh man, oh my goodness, I almost forgot to mention this. The ending. The ending is terrible. It made the whole movie a complete waste of my time. Seriously, it did. The ending is so terrible with this movie. And not to mention that this movie leaves me with more questions than it does answers. I don't mean that in a good way, where it like makes me think, oh, like what happened here? Like something like Inception, where the ending to that movie left me with questions. I was wondering, ooh, what's that intriguing? No, this just left me with like, okay, so what was the point of this and what was the point of that? Like, in a bad way, it left me questions more than answers. Like, seriously, this movie left me more questions than answers. And I'm like, what are you doing, movie? Like, seriously, oh man, and a lot... See, this is a problem with me with with kind of filmmakers like this. They rely way too much on metaphors, and they rely too much on metaphors instead of trying to make an actual movie. If you know what I mean, like they just try to rely too much on metaphors instead of actually, you know, I don't know, making the movie. Like, it's just... Yeah, the ending is not that good to this movie, and it kind of just makes this movie a whole big old waste of my time. Sorry, it really does. It Comes at Night. It's another A24 movie that is just not that good. Another overhyped A24 movie that's something more than just a pretentious art house movie that tries to be a horror film, even though it's not really. So it's time for my official grade on It Comes at Night, and my official grade on It Comes at Night is a D-. The only reason I can't give this an F is because, well, Joel Edgerton was great in the movie. I enjoyed his character. So, that's the only thing that saves this movie from becoming an F. Besides that, this movie is nothing more than, like I said, a pretentious art house A24 movie. It's not scary. Nothing makes sense in this film. Nothing happens in the slightest. The characters are uninteresting. The story's uninteresting. It's boring as hell. And... seriously, It Comes at Night. Another overhyped mess of a movie that's just not that good at all, and I didn't enjoy it, and it gets a D-. So, before I end this review, the Network Awards are happening once again, and your man here is nominated for some awards. So, what I need you to do is, if you want your boy here to win all those awards that he's nominated for, what I'm going to need you to do is vote in the link in the description. You're going to vote for the awards that I am nominated for, and of course vote for the other awards as well. But you know, if you want to see me win such awards as Best Movie Reviewer, then go vote. Because if you want to see me win, well, obviously you're going to need to vote. So if you want to vote for me to win some of the awards in the Network Awards, go to the link in the description and go vote. So, what did you think of It Comes at Night? Leave in the comment section below. And I'm FilmFan0599, and we will see you all later. Peace.